Something to begin with is let's talk about Dr. Sean Wilson and DOTD. Dr. Wilson's been very innovative in utilizing procurement processes, public-private partnerships. You know, he's had to be innovative on the limited dollars that he's used to improve infrastructure. He's taken our department based on some commentary from the Reason Foundation to one of the fifth most efficient per mile in administrative spending. So we're getting a good bang for our buck. But the one thing that Dr. Wilson hasn't been able to do and cannot do is he cannot innovate our way out of the backlog of infrastructure, $15 billion backlog. And we can't build new capacity without new money. That's $13 billion of new capacity projects. And look, I, for one, I'm really tired of pretending that we can do this, because we can't. You can't continue to go down that path. It's just not going to work. The governor's resilient Louisiana task force that came through in late spring, Dr. Wilson was a part of that. And once again, I mean, he was a significant part of that. And I'm proud of his efforts and encouraged by it, because one of the things they recognized was that economically, to recover from COVID, post-COVID, or even during COVID, was to reinvest in road construction. How do you do that? By increasing fuel taxes, but you get a huge return on your investment, as well as a savings in the long run. Now, previously I mentioned that I was someone who has not voted for the gas tax. I could not, because I didn't feel like raising revenue without reform was appropriate. I didn't feel like that was what my constituents sent me to Baton Rouge for. And so I believe that is one of the reasons now that I am doing this. I am looking for a good return on our investment. I'm looking for that accountability over those dollars. And that's why I decided to be a part of this solution when it was presented, this opportunity was presented to me. Now, I have spoken to elected officials, stakeholders, and others who have drafted my bill, and that's what's going to make this attempt in 2021 different from the previous attempts in 2017 and 2019. And those are the only two I can speak about, because, as Melinda stated, this is my...
No, you have that other one. Yeah. No, hell no, I got a car. I got a car note.
You don't have to pay. Somebody please mute.
I'm on the car now. Thanks, girl.
Now, also, those other bills have failed because they were either all money and no reform, or they were all reform and no money. So that was another reason I worked on this solution. Now, I want you to think about something. There's $780 million federal dollars. 780 million federal funds that comes with my bill that didn't come with the previous bills. And a no vote means that we're going to give those federal tax dollars to Texas, Mississippi, Arkansas, Alabama, all the ones we like to compare ourselves to. That's where our dollars would be going. Now, it was announced 2, maybe 3 months ago that we were going to begin this endeavor, and I did. I've been traveling the state. I've been meeting with legislators. I've met with over half the legislators. I still have almost half to go. Fortunately, several of them have called me and let me know where they're at, things they'd like to see, because they're all hearing about this bill, but no one's gotten to see it yet. And so with that, I've had Zoom calls, just like I'm having today with you, with economic development groups, with chambers of commerce, with Rotary clubs, other civic clubs that, you know, are engaged in this, and the response has been tremendous. some of the things that I was not expecting. I was expecting big business to really get involved, and they have, and I've heard a lot of their concerns. But it was the small businesses that really surprised me. So I had a plumber who called me, and he said, Jack, he didn't know who I was. He said, I actually represented McFarland. He said, I wanted you to know, support what you're doing. He said, I can't get from my home, one owner, can't get from my home to my job site because I'm driving 40 miles out of the way because of a closed bridge. So now I'm working less, having to charge more because of our lack of investment in infrastructure. I had a florist come sit right here across from my desk where I'm at right now from Natchitoches, and he sat here, his name was Mr. Scarborough, sat here in front of me and told me a similar story about why he's supporting this legislation. He said, I don't even know what all's in it. He just said, I know that we've got to do something. He said, I can't get flowers from my shop to cemeteries, to churches, to funerals, to weddings. And he said, then when I do, I have to charge additional cost, increasing the cost of the services. So those were some things I was not anticipating. Big business, yes, but small business, no. And as you know, I am a small business owner. I have several big trucks, and I know what it costs to get from point A to point B. And when I'm driving 60 miles out of the way, I know what it does to drive up my cost of being in business. Now, one of the things that I've had a lot of calls about is the damage to our vehicles. I've had a tremendous number of people tell me about the repairs cost to our automobiles. One of them, on average, is something I've learned from the trip report. About $700 a year is what people are spending on damaged vehicles from roads and bridges. I've seen some reports at $1,200. So the numbers are varying. Also seen recently in Natchitoches Parish, their homeowners insurance premiums are going up because their fire rating is going down because of the response time. And the delay in the response time is solely due to poor road conditions. So once again, there's all these dynamics building up to where we're at today, increasing our cost of everything else around us because we've failed to make that investment in our infrastructure. So we're approaching also a time very soon when our current gas tax dollars are not going to be going toward roads and bridges for construction. And that's just a plain truth. In the next 5 to 10 years, we're looking at all of our money being consumed by administrative cost. And $0 will be there to go toward roads and bridges. Last year in 2020, we had 105,000 Louisianans lost their jobs. COVID has hurt all of us tremendously bad. Sorry about that. Turn it down. Has hurt everyone. It's not just for an example, our dear friend, Representative Steve Carter. I mean, we all have those stories of someone that was close to us that we've lost, or someone that, you know, we've seen what it did to debilitate them. But I know one thing that's coming to the legislature this year, and it should be an easy yes to this, to say this is how we're going to fix our economy. I'm going to tell you why. We got a $15 billion backlog, bringing in our current condition, our roads into the decent condition. We could do that. We could invest $13 billion in new capacity projects that would give our economy an opportunity to grow and thrive. We talk about our kids leaving and not coming back after they get their education here. Well, we've always talked about bringing new business in. If we don't do this, we're not even going to keep the businesses we currently have. In the last gubernatorial election, everyone heard about the company in Minden, Louisiana, that because of a $2 million bridge, they were ready to move their facility, move the entire plant to Texas, just across the state line. That's another reason. Also, I want to think about that now. 780 million federal dollars we're giving up. $780 million we can get this year by passing this legislation. That's a 400% return on our investment. Not any one of us would pass up the opportunity to get $4 for every $1 we put up. Not one of us. I would borrow money from Melinda if someone told me that that's how I could get more money. But I want you to know something. We're already doing that. We're robbing Peter to pay Paul right now. Something many of you may not even pay attention to is an HB2, our capital outlay bill. That's how we're funding. That's how we're getting those federal dollars right now. Dr. Wilson shared with me that no less than 35% of all of our capital outlay, all those capital outlay dollars are going for a highway priority program to get the federal matching dollar. No less than 35%. And we've spent as much as 60%. And with the bonding capacity and our ability to do bond, very soon, that may not even be an opportunity. So think about everything else we're not doing that we should be doing with those capital outlay dollars. Deferred maintenance on our college campuses, $242 million now. That's where we're at. I just met with Dr. Henderson and Dr. Maggio, and I got to meet with several other university presidents in the following weeks. Think about that, $342 million in deferred maintenance. Where would that money come from? It would come from capital outlay if we weren't taking it out of there and putting it on infrastructure. Our locals, we talk about having quality water, safe drinking water. We can provide that to every community, local, municipal, rural water systems, if we were spending our money correctly. If we were taking our capital outlay dollars and not spending on infrastructure, we could help them. Our sewer systems to protect our environment, to be the conservationist that all of us in Louisiana aspire to be, because we're so proud of this wonderful state that we live in, the sportsman's paradise. These are the things that we're sacrificing. But this is a good problem because it's one that we can fix. It's one of the very best problems we have in Louisiana right now. And a lot of the other problems we have aren't so simple to fix. I mean, we've talked about it many times, me sitting in appropriations. I've heard about the problems with our K through 12. I've heard about problems with higher education, heard about the problems with LDH, our hospitals. Those are problems we are all still working on. But I want you to think about some other things. 43 other states have a higher gas tax than Louisiana. So let's put that in a different term. We have the 7th lowest gas tax in the country. Now the GRID Act, once again, Government Reform and Transportation Act, will give us an opportunity to bring $780 million home. As you know, 2 years ago, Alabama raised their gas tax with a Republican governor and a Republican legislature. Mississippi, they've been innovative. In the last 2 years, they found the revenue to invest in infrastructure. Arkansas, less than 3 months ago, passed a 0.5-cent sales tax to go and invest in their infrastructure. Texas continues to be innovative. Not only do they have gas tax, they have property tax, sales tax, and tolls. And you know what else they all got? They all got our federal tax dollars. And they're going to continue to get them if we don't address the issue. What am I doing about it? I'm bringing legislation. You know, in 1984, the last time the original 16-cent gas tax was passed, I was in the 8th grade. But I remember watching Ronald Reagan on TV. I remember him being running on a campaign platform of no tax, low tax, conservative. But one of the things he knew that he had to do in our economy at that time on the federal, on national and state level was to generate revenue to stimulate the economy. How did he do that? By building infrastructure, roads and bridges. And it didn't matter whether you was a Republican or a Democrat. One thing you have in common with everyone is you want an opportunity for the economy to grow. What Ronald Reagan did was he grew the economy, and Louisiana followed him. That's when it was passed. My bill brings a balance of reform with revenue, and it does right by our people. It does the things our constituents expect us to do. One thing we do have is we've got projects in there for every region of the state and oversight for every legislator as to what will come to their district. Details about my bill. My bill is much more conservative than the previous versions. The previous bills couldn't get 70 votes. So what did I do different? We've added transparency, we've added accountability, and we're going to get the 70 votes needed to pass this legislation. Right now, the need is desperate. Our roads and bridges are crumbling underneath us as we drive across them. As we watch a school bus drive across a bridge, next time I want you to think about it. Many of those bridges have been there since the 50s and had no significant investment. 37 years ago, we decided to make an investment, but not since. I believe some of the details, actually, I believe you were provided with a handout. I wanted to just kind of touch on that for a little bit. The bill has reforms and transparency. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to shift 4 cents from the Transportation Trust Fund to the Transportation Sub-Fund. Now, you'll remember the Transportation Sub-Fund was created through a constitutional amendment. And it was also one of the things that we gave Dr. Wilson another tool, but we didn't put anything in there for him to use to build the bridges or the roads. But what the Transportation Sub-Fund says is it's going to protect our dollars. It's going to do those things that our constituents demand that we do with any new money. It's going to do what they wanted us to do with the existing money, but previous legislatures failed to do. It's going to focus the money on roads and bridges, not on employee costs. This requires a legislative audit on all the new money. I continue to hear, we want accountability. This is part of that accountability. It creates a real-time construction map so that the public can engage at any time in real time and see where the dollars are going, when the projects are going to be bid, when the project's going to be completed. It gives them an opportunity to see the progress of that investment we're making. It also requires all of the money allocated so that we can maximize our federal tax dollars. Remember that $780 million I'm talking about? I believe under this administration, the current presidential administration we have now, there's going to be a significant investment in infrastructure. And we want to make sure that we're in a position to utilize all those funds. How does the bill work? It begins with 10 cents the first year. Then we're going to go to 2 cents every 2 years after that until the year 2033, until we accumulate 22 cents. Alternative vehicles will pay, on electric vehicle, you'll pay $400 an annual fee, and on a hybrid, you'll pay $275 annual fee. How will the money be distributed? It will be distributed with a 60-40 split. 60% will go to preservation. That's an investment in every urban and rural community. That's not just, people say, well, that's just going to go into the rural communities. No, that is every highway and bridge that we have. It's going to go to preserving that. Now, I did add a component in there to address a significant rural bridge issue. As traveling the state, as I mentioned, I've met with a lot of legislators, and many of them have said, we need more money invested in our rural bridge program. There will be a 40% new capacity. Now, you said, where did you get the 60-40 split? Well, originally we have a $15 billion backlog on preservation, and we have a $13 billion new capacity. That's our 60-40. Some of the named projects in the bill are the I-10 Calcasieu River Bridge with its connectors. We have the Mississippi River Bridge in Baton Rouge with its connectors. The I-10, I-49 Lafayette to New Orleans interchange. The widening of I-12 to 6 lanes from Baton Rouge all the way to the Mississippi line. The Jimmy Davis Bridge that would connect Shreveport and Bossier City. The widening of I-20 in Monroe, West Monroe, that would begin from Louisiana Highway 546 to Louisiana Highway 594. And then also, we have to do a better job in improving our access to our ports in New Orleans. One of the greatest economic producers in our state. Matter of fact, it's probably one of the greatest economic opportunities in our country. I should also mention that what is in my bill is consistent with the findings from the 2016 Task Force on Transportation Infrastructure that the governor created for investment into our infrastructure and roads and bridges. Now look, you all know there's a lot of tax reform, or you're hearing about a lot of tax reform bills that's coming this session, but this is the only one, the only bill that you're going to see immediate impact from. It will create immediate jobs, and it create an immediate opportunity economically for us to recover from COVID. No other reform measure we pass can do that. The GRID Act, because I need my colleagues to agree with me on fixing this. A lot of them have asked me, where did you come up with grit? It takes grit to make challenging decisions. As a businessman, I do them every day, so it doesn't bother me as much as it does others. But it does. As an elected official in the times we live in and the way the public is, it takes a lot of grit. At this time, I don't want to belabor this point. I want to have time for you to ask questions, so I'll open it up. Melinda?
I thought Jim was moderating questions. Sorry. Jack, let me start by asking the first question, and then I'll let Jim moderate after this. But in terms of the first question, the governor said recently that he doesn't see this passing because of COVID, like that right now is the wrong time, and he doesn't see how it can get 2/3 votes. And it sounds like you are much more confident about that. But the last time there was any discussion about a gas tax, it didn't go well in the House either. Are you concerned about how the pandemic and the current climate will affect people's willingness to raise taxes further on anybody right now?
Sure. Hey, look, once again, and I remind you that the Resilient Louisiana Task Force just recently made this recommendation. This was their recommendation that we address our gasoline revenue in this state and make that investment in infrastructure to stimulate the economy coming out of COVID and even during COVID. And obviously it hasn't been an issue for other states, as we've just seen recently. Arkansas 2 months ago voted and passed a half-cent sales tax. So, no, I think that this is a perfect opportunity. I think that even Resilient Louisiana agreed with that. And I think that part of what I've been doing, traveling and meeting with the legislators, we've been able to answer a lot of those questions that everyone had. And so I'm encouraged, Melinda, that this is the perfect opportunity, and this would be the best thing we could do, just like Ronald Reagan did in 1982.
How challenging, Representative, will it be to reallocate some money from DOTD for other purposes? Obviously, there will be some pushback on that. How are you going to be able to sell that? So the 4 cents that I'm proposing that we move from the Transportation Trust Fund currently is money that's already going to roads and bridges. So I just want to ensure that that money continues to go to roads and bridges, and isn't consumed by administrative cost and other issues.
So that's why I want to move it to the transportation sub-fund, is to protect it and to make sure it continues to be spent on roads and bridges.
Jack?
Yes.
Hey, it's Greg. So Jack, have you got either the Senate President or the House Speaker on board? It would seem to me that you'd need their support to move this forward.
Yes, so I have met with both of them. I continue to give them both updates about where I'm at. We continue to have conversations about where other legislators are at. I continue to address the concerns, and I'm encouraged by their response. They have encouraged me to continue to go out and work on this reform measure. They do agree that it, the speaker, obviously, he's made that tough vote in the past. So, he knows that we need to do the infrastructure, because like I said, he made the tough vote. But even our Senate President, who was chairman of transportation, he agrees. I mean, we've got to do something about our failing infrastructure. We're going to miss those $780 million of federal funds that's coming available. And, I'm encouraged that they're encouraging me to continue to charge forward with this reform measure.
So if you lay the groundwork, if you can show that you've gotten some traction, they'll come on board more fully, more verbally, publicly, you think, once you can show them that you're getting traction with other members?
Yes, I mean, so as you've seen already, we've had some economic groups and others that have began coming out in support. And over the next few weeks, you're going to see a significant number more of those. And I believe that's when I believe it's going to create a swell of support. Once all that is unveiled and how many people are really supporting this endeavor. And I'm encouraged by the Senate President and the Speaker's remarks to me each week when I give them an update on where I'm at.
You obviously will need to build a coalition to get this done with Republicans and Democrats. How are you trying to attract support from the other party?
So I have sat down. I didn't choose a Republican or Democrat, so to speak, when I looked at legislators. When I travel to a region, I meet with all the legislators, regardless of what party, and I sit down and I go through the bill. And look, every legislator's different. Everyone has their what's important to them and the needs that they want to address. And I believe I know our bill does that. And it's only gotten better because I've incorporated some of the ideals and proposals from Democrats and Republicans as I've traveled the state for my legislators. So it's encouraging. I mean, the support on both sides of the aisle is there. And I look forward to it. I believe you'll even see many from both sides of the aisle that have offered to co-sponsor and co-author this bill. That's why I said, as this thing moves forward, it's going to be a groundswell.
Is Sean Wilson on board?
Dr. Wilson and I have had multiple meetings. And we have made adjustments to the bill to address some of his concerns. And yes, he agrees that we've got to make investment in our infrastructure. And this may be our best opportunity. And I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I am encouraged because we continue to sit down and have that dialogue with one another. And I continue to address his concerns and explain some of the details that he hears about because he hadn't seen. So now that we've shared it with him, he's had a better opportunity. And look, like I said, I'm encouraged. He'll tell you, we've got to make an investment in our infrastructure and utilize those federal dollars that's coming down.
Well, Jack, it's in the, I know it's in your release, but what will it generate annually? The initial 10 cents?
So each cent is worth $30 million.
Okay.
So the initial 10 cents will be worth $300 million, which is twice as much as we're taking out of capital outlay right now to fund our highway priority program. And that, once again, I got to reiterate that That is robbing Peter to pay Paul. We're doing a disservice to everyone in Louisiana when we continue to misspend that away. When we continue to take dollars that should be going for deferred maintenance on our college campuses. Look, I know of a college campus building, you can put your arm through the brick. Look at LSU in Baton Rouge. You got water pouring in the roof in the library.
What, so this goes toward, I thought this was for
It is, but we're using so much of our money in capital outlay dollars.
Oh, I see, right.
For infrastructure, and we would no longer do that. One of the reform measures I want to include either in this bill, if it doesn't make it a dual object, I'll have to put it outside the bill, is for us to stop doing that. And if we have to mandate it legislatively to stop misappropriating and using capital outlay dollars for roads and bridges and to use it for what it was intended for, deferred maintenance, water systems, water improvement, sewer improvement, then that's what I'm going to do. That's why it's called reform.
You know, Representative Liz Dent-Sumrall here, you mentioned reform and revenue, but I think what the citizens and the taxpayers want are results, which is what you're talking about. And we want to see better quality of construction. I set proxy on the time tax several decades ago. I don't know what the status is, and I had a hard time researching it. Wasn't able to pull up much. But at the time, our sister states, I think Texas and Mississippi and some of the other
We have less than a
states
minute left in our
had
time.
paved more miles. Louisiana had just paved 13 miles, and those results are unacceptable. I don't know what the status is now. Are you familiar with that?
I am familiar with the time project that was passed in 1989. There's still 2 projects down in Jefferson and St. Tammany that have to be completed. But that goes back to where I'm at now. That created an economic opportunity for our state. But the other thing that did, that created new roads that we never had the money to preserve. So we made a significant investment going from 2 lanes to 4 lanes throughout the state, but we didn't have the money to preserve them. So we did a disservice. So now it's time to make that investment to preserve those time projects as well.
Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, I think our time is short, Representative, but we thank you for your time and best of luck to you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And if I didn't answer something, then please, y'all reach out individually and I'll answer any question anytime.